Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience. We discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Hi, I'm your host for Branding the Experience, Ken Bader, and I have a great guest. I've got an international guest. We're starting to have a few more of these on Branding the Experience, which is really, really cool, to use a high-level MBA term. But I'm sure enjoying it because we need some different perspectives. Let me tell you about the guest today. His name is Marek Zmyslowski. He is a Polish-born entrepreneur. I'm Polish myself, never been there. I can't speak Polish, so we will do the interview in English, thank God. He is also an executive. He's focused on online businesses in frontier and emerging markets. We're going to hear about that, especially since online is so important today. He co-founded Jumia, or Jumia, or do you say Smythe, Travel, Africa's biggest hotel booking portal, listed on the New York Stock Exchange as part of the Jumia Group and hotelonline.com, or actually .co, C-O. Learn how to read, Ken. A travel technology company. In 2014, he was chosen as one of the 10 most important people in tech by IT News Africa magazine. He is a lead mentor on Google's Launchpad and World Bank's Excel Africa program. Marek is also a former snowboard instructor. Didn't know there was that much snow in Poland. And holds a racing license in motorsports. But his real-life goal is simply to leave this world in slightly better shape than what it was when he arrived, and I think that's a perfect mission. Marek, welcome to the show.
That was a great bio. I shouldn't speak now because I'm only going to ruin that impression. It's a pleasure to be here, Kenneth.
It's all downhill from here. I do the same when I'm a guest on another show and I hear my bio. It's like, wow, that guy sounds cool. Can I meet him? Maybe I should have him on my show. So I gotta go.
Thanks so much.
No, you're very, very welcome. It's my pleasure to have you. We're gonna have such a good time, especially because I want to learn how to snowboard. Is it a lot of snowboarding in Africa where you run your business?
Actually, you can snowboard in a couple of places, but I've never done this since I just didn't have the time. I used to snowboard a lot when I was living in Poland, but I moved out of Poland almost 10 years ago. And that's how I made my money, really, when I was studying. I would just go for 2 or 3 months during the break to the iceberg and just stay there and, make some money teaching rich, fat kids how to not get killed driving down the mountain. It was a great training for my patience.
Yes, I can hear you. I have never snowboarded. I always wanted to learn. I think at 50, maybe I will try something else. Maybe I'll just try checkers or something. But getting into some serious mode, was snowboarding and that teaching kind of your very first entree into entrepreneurship?
Not really. First way I have made money was when I started studying, and my parents were still paying me money kind of to survive, pocket money for food, the place I was renting, because I went to another city, and I really didn't want to be controlled by my parents anymore. My mom was very controlling, and I realized that although I have moved to another city, I'm still kind of under their control because they're paying me money. So the only way for me was to break the financial leverage that they had. And I didn't know anything what I could do at that point. I just knew I was good at maths because I was studying engineering. And I just posted an offer on a website that I can teach stupid kids math. Obviously, this didn't sound like that.
Did you put it that way? I can teach stupid kids math. How stupid is your kid?
I didn't use that word, but I was really frank. Like, I know how to make someone that is very bad decent.
Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, I was bullied, and the only way I could talk to the popular kids was to help them in maths, and I kind of knew how to make them pass the test.
Yeah.
And that's how I really was making my first money. I would remember spending all my money on alcohol that I got from my parents or partying. Then I would be hungry. I would go to teach 1 hour mathematics to some kid, and the parents would give me money immediately, and I would go straight to a supermarket to get some food.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I made my first money outside, my parents. That because when your father tells you to cut the loan, it's not the same.
Yeah. I hear you. If it makes you feel any better, I always hated mowing the lawn when I was a kid. So when I became an adult, I refused to ever live in a home that had grass. I lived in an
Okay.
apartment. I lived in a condo. I lived in a townhouse. And even the house that I'm in now has no grass, so I don't have to deal with it.
That
It's
sounds
perfect.
like a trauma, man. That sounds like a trauma. You need to talk to someone about that.
Marek, we don't have that kind of time. That's a whole. That's not only a whole different episode. That's a whole different freaking show that I could do about my
But
trauma.
since we are about that, I had a lot of trauma from childhood because I was really bullied. I was like, when you
Yeah,
see those Hollywood movies, when you have those popular kids playing football, and then those nice girls, and then those like fat guys with glasses, not being able to talk to anyone. I was one of them, and that trauma I had from being laughed at and embarrassed so many times was inside me for so many years to come. And I realized that it was a double-edged sword for me. It made me extremely motivated in business, and made my first big money because I had that internal kid that needed to prove to everyone around that I'm worth something.
yeah,
Super powerful tool to have in business, but if you allow it to take control of you, it's never enough, and it can actually destroy you in the long term.
yeah. Yeah, great points, Marek. But I think you won because you're a successful entrepreneur, and from what I understand, your girlfriend's a model. So while all these bullies are probably
Oh my god.
homeless, you're trying to find their next meal. You're living the life.
I am extremely lucky that my partner is not only super smart but also beautiful. Yeah, I have to say that.
Yeah, yeah. As we like to say here in the states, I outkicked my punt coverage with my wife. So I'm extremely lucky. So
You look
two.
at your wife sometimes and then like, why is she doing this to herself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
every time at dinner, it's like am I really living this? Is this did I make this happen? Anyhow,
Yeah.
so to the wives and the girlfriends, I definitely won't edit
To
that
them.
part out. So let's stay on the entrepreneur path. I mean, you focus on online businesses in frontier and emerging markets. Tell us more about that. What that actually entails.
Yeah, so it wasn't really by design. Let me quickly explain you how I got there.
Sure.
My first real big money I made early 2000 in Poland because the economy was booming back then. I joined a financial brokerage company. It was the beginning of those type of businesses in Poland. I was like employee number 5, and in 3 years we built an organization of 3,000 people. So whatever we would sell, like mortgages, investments, funds, insurance, you would just make crazy money out of it. And then 2008 came, and all the millions we've made, we've lost totally. So I already had that experience, but I was depressed. I didn't want to look at finance sector anymore. I went into startups because I watched CNN and seeing all those big companies from Silicon Valley being grown.
Right.
And I started building online businesses in Poland because I figured I'm young. I kind of understand technology better than older guys than me. I may have a chance here. I bankrupted a couple of small businesses because startups, you build fast, you fail fast.
Sure.
But 2 of them I was able actually to sell, and that's how I realized I think I like this. I like building websites where there's a business behind it. In markets when technology is just about to be introduced, which was Poland in the early 2000s, yeah,
Hmm.
2008, 9, and then later. And that kind of concept, I was like, okay, Poland is already developed after a couple of years. Where can I do it next? And then I looked at this, huge continent of Africa being like one huge mystery for many people. A lot of guys from Europe are ignorant. But when you go behind the noise
Yeah.
and you look at the potential, you just realize that that's where everything is happening right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I want to stick to building online businesses in emerging markets since I had that experience of Poland. And I was like, where can I use that experience next? I didn't want to go east to Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, etc., because
Yeah.
it was too freaking cold for me. I love snowboard, but I hate cold. I'm serious. Like I
Yeah,
didn't like cold.
that's why I'm in California. I grew up in Chicago. I love the city, but just about 6 months out of the year. But please continue.
Chicago is like Poland. Yeah, I've
Oh
been to
yeah.
Chicago many times during summer and winter, and it's crazy. And there's this big company in Europe called Rocket Internet. after Amazon and Alibaba, this is like one of the biggest e-commerce groups worldwide.
Hmm.
And if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you want to work for them at least for a year, because you're going to learn so much. And I applied because I was like, let me learn from you guys, and I'm going to leave open my own business. And what was supposed to be a 1-year adventure ended up being a 4-year adventure with them. We made this company public. And then, although I left them and then opened another company of my own this time, I still stayed in Africa because I kind of fell in love with the continent, by the way. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's how I ended up there. Yeah.
So you fell in love with Africa, and you basically made a business based on travel to that area. If I understand that correct, what made you fall in love with Africa? What was different about that continent and that region?
Yeah. So actually, we made this online travel agency, which was focused not on travel to Africa, but from Africa outside, for
Okay.
all those Nigerians, Kenyans, South Africans that have the money to travel outside, and for those Nigerians that want to travel to Kenya or even within the country. Because if I want to compete for the client from the States traveling for a safari to Mombasa, I will need to compete with Expedia or Booking.com.
Yeah.
I don't have the money. But there's a growing number of clients within the continent which have more and more money. And for them, they don't even know Booking.com or Expedia yet. So I have a chance to build my brand when we can talk about that. But to rewind to 2012, when we were moving to Africa, we had this partnership with a big investment fund. I told you, Rocket Internet. And they had this very clear thesis. They believed that in 10 to 20 years, Africa, obviously capitalism will win, democracy will win. It was so obvious back then, not so much anymore. And if capitalism and democracy wins, customer behavior also gets unified. So
right.
all those models from Europe and States most likely will also be pretty successful in Africa. So we launched 7 businesses actually, and I was responsible for one of them. We wanted to build the Amazon of Africa, the eBay of Africa, the Uber of Africa, the food delivery, and of course Expedia, and 2 more like Gumtree or OLX for
Sure.
cars and real estate. And I was kind of the managing director and co-founder of the travel business. After 2 years, we've realized that the market is too small to make sense to spend money on building 7 brands separately. And what sounds pretty strange in the US to have one brand for many different services is not that strange in Africa. You have the biggest company called Dangote, the same brand, the same logo, and they sell both cement and sugar. So we realized it won't be that strange to sell hotel bookings, food delivery, being able to order, to buy a TV online, all under one brand. Because the market is small and it's better to put all that money into one brand. So we ended up building this one huge platform for almost everything. Now you can also even buy cinema tickets or pay some money, buy insurance, or send money to your friend. So it's like a super app.
Yeah, it's not that much different than Amazon. I think that Amazon is almost, it seems like, into banking in some ways. I think I don't even want to go if I have a pain someplace. I don't even want to go to a doctor or Google. I just want to go to Amazon. I figure Amazon Prime could do everything out here. So it's not that it's not that unusual to have a number of different how should I say, avenues or services under one brand name. Yeah.
But this has come from the East to the Western markets. This wasn't so obvious a couple of years ago. But this actually came from India. It came from China. With apps like WeChat, where you do absolutely everything within one app. It's like an internet closed into an app. And actually, this is now coming into the Western world. Usually, different type of trends come from west to the east. But in terms of how apps are working, how online businesses are working, we might not see it. It's not so obvious on the outside. But more and more solutions are actually taking over the ones that came from the east or from the south.
Yeah, interesting. So you created this business to help people in Africa be able to travel. You built this brand. Just out of curiosity, where do people from Africa like to travel? Do they travel to Australia? Do they travel to the States? Do they go to Spain, where you
Yeah.
are now? Where do they travel to?
So Nigerians are one of the most favorite clients worldwide because of how much money they spend. When they travel like kings. And their number one destination is Dubai,
Hmm.
without a doubt. Spending money, and then city breaks to Europe, like Barcelona, London trips.
Yeah.
Just have fun. Not necessarily, go for a safari or go for hiking, because life in Africa is dangerous enough. Like, you don't need to pay for hiking. You have hiking enough. But also, what is not so obvious in Europe, but this is actually a very big portion of the market, both in Asia, like Indonesia or even Japan, but especially in sub-Saharan Africa, are those city breaks in the same city where you live in. You would go to a hotel for the weekend. Because when you live in Lagos in Nigeria, it's a 20 million city, 20 million people city with no
Yeah.
without public transport. There's problem with running water. Electricity gets cut off from time to time. You just want to take your family to the hotel which is in your area, but you're gonna go there for the whole weekend. You're gonna use the swimming pool, the sauna, the breakfast buffet, and people actually spend a lot of money. Big hotels in Lagos in Nigeria, like Sheraton and other big brands,
Mhm.
now I can tell this because the NDA is not over me anymore. 70% of their revenue actually comes from local clients.
Interesting. Interesting. So, what was, as you're building this brand in, especially for Nigerians, it sounds like that was your target market. As you're building this brand, what was one of the biggest challenges you ran into?
So this is the big problem with any technology slash online business we wanted to
Sure.
build. It's the order in which businesses can build on top of each other. Like Amazon was built in the US because you already had huge network and infrastructure of shopping malls and bookstores. You had logistics companies, you had internet, everything was working. You could sell something on your website even if it wasn't in your warehouse.
Mhm.
For us, in order to build e-commerce, we had to build our own logistics. There was no DHL. In 2012, you couldn't work with DHL to send your packages to the client. DHL was only doing big deliveries. There was really no working payment processor to pay for anything online. We had to build our own local solution for this to work seamlessly. With hotels, there's the same. In 2012 in Nigeria, I was always laughing. When you're asking if a hotel has Wi-Fi, they say that they have Wi-Fi, but then you have to ask if it's working because it's the difference.
Sure, we got a swimming pool. There's just no water in it.
But I'm telling you, it was a problem. The hotels were not used to getting clients from the internet. I mean, 2 years ago, Google was still playing TV ads. In the main TV channel in Nigeria at 8 p.m. before the main movie, Google would play a TV ad saying there's this service online called google.com. You can go there and you can search for stuff. So, people didn't really know about internet that much. If you really wanted to provide your service to everyone in Nigeria, not only to the 1% that is educated and has a lot of money. So our problem was that we had to find those hotels that were not online. And then when a client has booked a hotel room on our website, I couldn't just send an email to the hotel because he wouldn't reply or even read it.
Yeah.
I couldn't just send a message to his dashboard when he logs in to change the price. No, they were not doing this. So sometimes wouldn't even pick up the phone. I would have to have my people like couriers in every big
Yeah.
city, that they would go to the reception and saying, our guy is coming in 2 days from now, make sure that the room is waiting. So there was a lot of manual work to do in order to provide that online service. And only after the hotel realized, okay, there's this Polish guy, he's been sending me more and more clients,
Yeah.
I need to treat him now more seriously. And
Right.
then I would go to the hotel and I would tell him, from now on, you have to reply to my emails. You have to check everything online, because if not, I'm stopping sending you emails.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to, there's this chicken egg problem, yeah?
Yeah.
They only treat you seriously if you send clients, but first you have to send clients and find a way around it. So that
Right.
was very tricky, and one of the coolest story of my life, really.
Yeah. So you had to So you had to say, "Hey, Asha, hop on the bike. We got a reservation."
Exactly. And we had to find those hotels because
Yeah,
there weren't really no travel agencies then. People wouldn't book hotels online. They would land in a city and they would ask the taxi driver, show me a hotel. The taxi drivers were the travel agents.
yeah,
So I couldn't even find a category or a registry of hotels. So I would use those local taxi guys. They would not drive a car, they would drive a bike.
yeah,
And I would tell the guy, find me every hotel in your area. I'll pay you 500 naira, which was like half a dollar back then,
yeah,
for every hotel name and number that you're gonna find in your area. And that's how I started, building my own database of hotels in the city.
yeah, yeah. Once you started getting that legitimacy from these hotels, did they start finding two aluminum cans with long string to talk directly to you, or or what? Yeah, having been blessed, not living in a second or third world environment, although maybe with this pandemic we're heading back there. It's tough for me to understand, but how once you got some of these kinks worked out, did things get to a point where the experience for your customers moved smoothly?
Oh yeah, it became much better very fast because, I kid you not, the internet speed and quality in Lagos right now is probably better than San Francisco.
I
We
can
had
believe that.
4G before San Francisco. The problem is that you go outside the city and suddenly it's zero. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Africa is very urbanized. All the life, all the business happens in the city. Once you leave out the main city, there's just nothing. No power, no electricity, no coverage. And that's the challenge. But hotels really got into Wi-Fi very quickly. You didn't have to build that physical infrastructure to build internet connection because you switched directly straight to 4G. You didn't have to build, fiber optics.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with banks. Banking system now in Africa in general is very advanced, even more advanced than the US or Poland or Germany, because they kind of build it from scratch. There was no old system they had to
Yeah.
revolutionize. They just build it from scratch. This is why in Africa, blockchain is probably going to be adopted way faster than in everywhere else, because there's kind of nothing else to kick out first. There's no status quo. There's no lobby that tries to keep things the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very rare that I travel out of the United States, even more so today. But I've
Yeah.
heard that from many people, many colleagues that do travel around the world. That you go to Europe, you even in your case go to Africa, and when you're in a city, things actually, especially from Wi-Fi and cell service and everything, things actually move pretty quick because you're not relying on these old systems, I mean, literally, if I walk outside my front door here in Long Beach, California, I see electrical wires on towers and things because it's just too costly to put them under the ground and go to systems that we have today. So I can completely
Yeah.
understand that. So moving to today, I mean, you've built a successful brand, obviously, and things are working. And then we have this little pandemic thing hit. Yeah, how has that really affected? I can imagine, but how has that affected your business?
Yeah, so fast forward after the travel business, I opened another business in travel. This time I went with the technology revolution that was happening in Africa, and we built a company that actually built software for those African hotels because they already knew, okay, this internet is here to stay. We need some proper solutions that will allow us to manage bookings and manage our hotel. But the solutions from the States were too complicated, so we built a company designed for Africa. And that was not a business in Africa. And that got me into trouble. Long story short, I had some shady business partners in Nigeria that tried to kick me out. I was almost arrested. I wrote a book about it, etc., etc. And all those adventures, that was like 6 years in total of online travel in Africa. I was like, I need a break. I need to switch gears now. So my next company was a performance marketing agency where my clients were online travel and retail, which is what's in e-commerce, which is what really saved my life today, because half of my revenue in this agency, brands like Emirates Airlines were my clients, that the company we built because we had a piece of technology they using. Obviously, they shut down. revenue went to zero. But the other part of my clients are e-commerce businesses that sell stuff online, and that part of my business is kind of skyrocketed. So I already had my lesson of not putting all the eggs in the basket a couple years ago. I've already lost all my money in 2008. So I gotta be honest with you, this crisis is not really hurting me that much because kind of on the emotional level, I've been there,
Yeah.
and on the business level, I already had my lesson of not never being too cocky about how secure I feel about my
Yeah.
business. So if whoever is going through some hard times right now, I would assume this is your first time. You're a crisis virgin. Yeah? So this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Just don't worry, and it's gonna get better. Yeah?
Yeah, I hear you on that. Being a little older than you, being 50 years old, having gone through a couple recessions. That 2008, 2009 one was a real bitch. I
Yeah.
remember literally losing $10,000 on events that I put on for my business and so forth. So when this came about, it's like, all right, this is I remember all this. I remember not liking it, but I remember all this. This isn't that new. Although, some of the lockdown is new. So, from that standpoint, I truly believe, and this is what a lot of my thought leader entrepreneur friends in the United States like to talk about to stay positive. And I don't think that it's a pipe dream. I think that there's always an opportunity in crisis. Sometimes you got to look a little bit deeper. Sometimes as we say here, you've got to get your head out of your ass a little bit. Actually think a
Yeah.
little bit more forward. But there's always an opportunity. Where do you see the opportunities going forward? Through the problems that we're dealing with right now.
I guess if I had to give you a short answer, it's all about digitalization and removing the human aspect of any connection.
Yeah.
And this can be done at every stage of life and business. Retail, people will buy more online. Logistics, there will be more and more logistic services needed. Almost all human interaction will now be removed into to something done remotely. Let me just answer it this way. I wouldn't necessarily now look around and try to search for 100 new ideas to go into, because every now is fighting for survival, and you're
Right.
gonna have people doing everything to just survive. I don't want to use the F you up, but everyone
Yeah.
is now in the real serious survival mode.
Yeah.
I would just really stick to what's my business now and how do I kind of modify my business to take advantage of what's happening. And this can either mean diversification or narrowing of your business. I'm going to give you two examples.
Please.
There's this e-commerce, I think from Portugal or Spain, called Ocado, and they were kind of like a huge marketplace. You could buy everything online because, in order to make money, you want to sell a little bit of everything because you never know where the trends are. But now, because suddenly everyone went after buying everything online, they decided, no, we're actually going to limit our inventory. We're only going to focus on half of the products we sell, because this allows us to sell those products to 10 times more people. Because you limit your logistics challenges, inventory, when you're narrowing your products. But on the other side, sometimes you need companies that you actually have to diversify, because your main line of revenue right now is not as popular as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it all depends, but everyone's talking diversification, but sometimes actually narrowing your business can also be the winning strategy. Look at Zoom.
Right.
Zoom was this video conferencing tool. They were really going into different avenues, providing services to companies, video conferencing, webinars, 100 different features, because they were struggling with adoption.
Yep.
And now suddenly freaking everyone is using Zoom,
Yeah.
and they have way different problems. So they shut down many of their features, and they were like, okay, let's just focus on this one, and let's do this good.
Yeah. Great points. I love what you said about not necessarily changing your whole business, but I'll paraphrase what I inferred, which was learn how to do it digitally. learn how to
Yeah.
do it, online. And I will say, as an example, myself, my business, while isn't going gangbusters during this pandemic, it certainly isn't doing terrible either. The cash flow is still there. And I actually find that in the last 2 months, I've been more productive. I'm not traveling back and forth to the office. I'm not doing some of these things that would distract me from my focus. Similar to what you said about Zoom, is focusing on one thing. And even though it's very, very rare, I leave my home office here. Look at today. I was in Omaha this morning. I'm talking to you in Spain, late morning. I'm
Yeah.
talking to somebody in Canada this afternoon. I feel like I'm traveling the whole world today, without, even, leaving the comfort of my home office. So I think it's a matter of embracing the technology, but also from a branding standpoint. And I'm seeing a number of businesses, including some of my clients, do this really well, which is not leaving the human part out of it, but finding a way to use technology to make a human connection. Does that make sense, or is that just completely off base, Mark?
I mean, totally. You Technology cannot replace the human connection, and that human connection is needed on many different levels of business. There are just certain hormones that will never go up
Yeah.
if you don't meet a person in person. However, having said that, there's way too many things we've been doing in the wrong way, and the current situation we're in makes us more efficient. I do believe that uh, everything that we're seeing around is not a change of trends. The trends are just being accelerated,
Yeah.
and everything will just start happening faster. Businesses will be built faster, people will be fired faster, sales deals will be done faster, and so on and so on. Um, we just, I think, have to kind of find the balance. Let's not get too overexcited about this technology and speed, that our piece of the pie is getting bigger because we're lucky to be in technology and we are on the forefront. Like, we kind of know what's happening. We're ahead of the curve than most of the people. Uh, I work in technology businesses, and it's been a shock to many of my teams.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine what type of a shock that is for people that don't work in technology.
Oh,
But then
sure.
you want to remember that although your piece of the pie gets bigger, it does. You want to remember that the whole pie doesn't shrink, yeah, because of the shock that the economy
Right.
is in. And I do believe that there's going to be a sweet spot we're going to find ourselves in.
Yeah.
I'm going to give an example of events. Yeah, everyone is thinking now events are going to die out. I don't think they will. It's just going to be a much more special thing to do to have an event than it used to be. You're going to pay more attention to it. Maybe the quantity will go down, but the quality will go up. Just like it happened to press, just like it happened to the radio. It's
Yeah.
going to find its place, but it's going to change its role.
Yeah. Yeah. Great points. Completely agree with what you said. Marek, I could literally talk to you all afternoon here and all evening there, but but I know you're probably aching to spend some time with that great girlfriend, or go out if there's something actually open in
It's evening
Spain,
here. Yeah.
or at least go to dinner. So last question that I have for you, for those out there in our audience that want to learn more about your journey, maybe find your book and so forth. How could they find that out on the internet and online?
Yeah, thanks so much for allowing me to mention that. So I did write a book, which is a book about all my adventures in Africa. They've been extreme because on one side we've built this company, made it public in the USA, which is a dream for every executive.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I was on Interpol most wanted list. If you want to learn more, the book is called Chasing Black Unicorns, and I think it's easy to remember. And all the revenue from this book, as well as all my speaking engagements, go into a charity, which we also launched with my girlfriend. So everything is on the website, all my social media accounts. If anyone is interested in listening more to my story and the stuff that I do, chasingblackunicorns.com is where you're going to find me. Thanks so much for allowing me to share that.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, and definitely everybody in the audience, go chase some black unicorns and go find that book. It's, it actually sounds like it would be a great podcast. You could probably do like 7, 8 episodes. That's like a new thing now. Is is not having a whole,
It could be, yeah.
whole number of seasons. It's having, 6 or 7 specific episodes, and boom, it's done. But Marek, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I found this to be an extremely interesting conversation. I really appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure was mine. And thank you so much to the audience for watching this episode. And here's, as always, hoping that you're branding the experience at a very high level for all those you serve. Take care. Thank you for watching Branding the Experience. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're looking for a speaker on branding the experience, on workplace culture, or on business strategy, I have a number of different options for you. And my approach is always to entertain first, engage second, and educate third. It's a formula that leaves my audience not only laughing and enjoying, but also learning. So if you want a great speaker on branding, culture building, or strategy, I'd like to hear from you. Simply send me an email at kbator, B-A-T-O-R, at btcinc.net, or to learn more about the presentations that I've done that have been successful in the past, go to www.btcinc.net.